Hello everybody, welcome back to the channel. My name is Alex. I make guitars in my shop in Seattle, and I'll give you a recap of what we've been doing with Grandpa's guitar, which is that when it came into us, the soundboard was lifting off. It had come delaminated also. The bridge was held on by a couple of bolts with nuts, and as a result, over time, the bridge had lifted this way, causing the soundboard to warp in this direction. The fingerboard was covered in black paint. So then what we did is we glued the soundboard back together. We used heat and pressure and time to, there were no fret dot markers before, they were just painted on. So we, let's get started. No, wait, let's get to working. Let's go. Okay, we're back here at the bench with the guitar. We've got the bridge, and I realized, so at night I lay down in bed with my head on the pillow and I think of my game plan for the next day. And I realized I don't have any bridge clamps which will fit this guitar. So I made some bridge clamps out of scrap mahogany and an Irwin clamp. These bridge clamps will hold the bridge in place. Before we do that though, the bridge, this surface, we've already leveled that, but this surface is not perfectly flat. There are some irregularities. And while the bridge is being glued to the soundboard, we will also apply a coat of wipe-on polyacrylic to the neck. And while that's drying, we will work on making a nut and a saddle out of bone. All right, so we're gonna prepare the surface of the bottom of the bridge. And what I'd like to do is, I'd like to bring, you see how it's not perfectly flat? There are undulations in this wood to the tune of maybe like 200 thousandths. So I think if we bring the bridge down, remove a layer of about 450 thousandths, that will be sufficient in making this flat and also bringing the action down a little bit. So let's set our calipers to, there we go. And I'll mark a line around the side. This line will give us a reference of where to stop. Okay. Now we have a marking line that goes around the outside. Yeah. My belt sander is homemade. One of these days I'll be able to afford a real one. In the meantime, this is how you do it in the airport neighborhood. There. Look at that. We are human, and humans build tools. Let's get back to work. You know, this really isn't doing anything. I'm going to adjust my strategy. Let's move it up. And check our work. All right, well, I mean, this bridge is now flat. Okay, let's go on to the next step. Okay, it turns out the bridge was made out of the same mahogany that the rest of the guitar is made out All right, we're back at the bench. We just sanded the black off of the bridge. I'm going to leave that black because I think when I add the pore filler and I add the, I'm going to put some of the same finish that I put on the fretboard onto the bridge. I think that will look rustic and neat. There is some artistic license that we're allowed. And I mean, the most important part is that we care about what we're doing. And I deeply care about what I'm doing. Oh, let's not forget, we need to fill the bolt holes. Okay. You didn't think I forgot the bolt holes, did you? Wood River, my huckleberry friend, Wood River. I was thinking I could fill it with mother of pearl, but I used abalone on the rest of it. Oh, look, I've got 2 abalone dots that might just fit. These abalone dots might fit. Woo! That way, when people look at it, they won't automatically assume plastic, because that is what I assumed when I first saw it. I thought plastic dots. But with abalone, it'll be clearly abalone. Mother of pearl could quite possibly be confused with plastic. And let's see if these dots fit. Oh, we might be in luck. Boy, oh boy, oh boy. These dots do fit. Oh, well, that's just terrific, isn't it? Sometimes life throws you a wad of $20 bills. I do like inlays. Inlays is how I started doing this. I started doing inlays on banjos. How niche is that? If there's a trade which is really in demand in the Pacific Northwest, it's got to be doing mother of pearl abalone inlays on banjos. And then I moved on to doing just building banjos. I thought, well, if I can do the inlays on banjos, I can just build the banjos. But then I ran into that same roadblock where nobody cares at all about banjos. If they want a banjo, they go get a $100 banjo off Amazon, let's be honest. Yeah, cool. Abalone. No mistaking that for plastic. The next step will be to fill the holes which were left by the machine bolts that were inside this guitar. Cool. So the next thing we're going to do is fill those holes, the bolt holes. And to do that, we're going to make some dowels using this tool. Doesn't make any sense to buy dowels when you can make dowels. If you teach a person to make dowels, they'll have dowels for the rest of their life. Or at least until they lose the tool that makes the dowels. Okay, a question popped into my head. Can we make our dowels out of these things, which are pre-made dowel insert plugs for wooden joinery? Maybe. All of life is school. All of life is an experiment. You never know unless you try. Trying does not make you a fool. Let's give it a shot. Oh boy, I don't know if this is going to work. Start with this one. Seems to be working so far. Now this one. That's okay. Now this one. Oh. That broke off. I was expecting it to break off. But hey, look at that. We have a tiny little dowel. I'll place that in. Chop it off and do the next one. Give it a little tappy tappy. And chop it off. put a little glue on there. Wick up the excess, which we don't want. Again, let's double check the intonation. The bridge is going back exactly where I took it off. However, we just want to make sure that it was originally in a good place to begin with. Okay, so what I'm going to make sure is that the very edge of the 0 fret reaches the very edge of the 12th fret, and that distance is the same as the distance between the 12th fret and the top of the saddle. From the 0 fret to the 12th fret is precisely 10 and 13/16. On this side, it's the same. Now let's go down here and measure the distance from the 12th fret to the saddle. We want it to be 10 and 13/16. It is precisely 10 and 13/16. Excellent. So the bridge is going to go back in the exact same position where it was before. All right, let's glue this bridge in place. For this operation, we'll need the Type Bond 2. Goldie! It's Goldie, everybody. Well, Goldie's here. That means we're going to have to take a Goldie break. Hey, Goldie. Goldie seems to prefer the Sheba brand cat food more than the Friskies cat food. But what she really likes is the crunchy treat things that I sprinkle on top. Sometimes she just eats the crunchy part. She has a collar, but she doesn't belong to anyone. I met the person who put the collar on there, and he put the collar on there so that she wouldn't get taken by the animal control. All right, that was a nice Goldie break. Let's grab our clamps. So this will be the thing that tightens them on there. All right, the next step is to apply glue. Ensure that it's facing the proper direction. Okay, there it is. All right, so while that glue dries, let's utilize our time wisely and apply the coat of wipe-on polyacrylic. And this Minwax wipe-on polyacrylic is going over several coats of water-based pore filler. We'll let that dry for a couple of hours, then come on and put more coats on. Okay, we're getting closer to the finish line. The next part of the process will be to make a nut and a saddle. And we're going to be making those out of bone. And this part of the process is kind of gross, so you need gloves and you also need a respirator because bone dust is disgusting and you don't want it in your lungs. This is the original nut, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to line it up here with the new nut and create an outline. Looks good. And then, because this guitar has a 0 fret, its purpose will be to align the strings in the spot where they need to go, and also to provide a break angle, and also it will be aesthetic because it would look weird without a nut. but it has no function beyond that. Okay, for the next part, we are going to thickness this piece of bone down to the width we need to fit into the saddle slot. I've taken this scrap piece of wood and some double stick tape, and this is a piece of marble tile to which I've fixed some sandpaper. Now we just go at it. When you're doing this, make sure you wear a dust mask, because the dust which is produced by sanding bone smells terrible and it's bad for you. You don't want it in your lungs. And we'll just continue doing this for a long time. Okay, and it looks to me like that is perfect. Let's put it in the bridge and find out. Ah, yeah, look at that. A nice snug fit. You don't want it loose, and you don't want it too tight. You want it to be nice and firm. Just like that. Perfect. Another job well done. Okay, yeah. There is a reason why a lot of people dislike this particular part of the lutherie process. It smells terrible, and it's disgusting. Now that we have the nut sanded down to something that is a little more nut shaped, we can continue doing that. Okay. Again, this is a shorter nut because it's going on a guitar with a 0 fret. I think that looks kind of cool. All right. That looks good. Next, I'll cut the fret slots, and the final step will be to polish it. So there's no radius on this fretboard. So the curve that I introduced into this was purely just aesthetic. But we do want a depth stop, because the break angle is important. Even though it's a 0 fret, we still want a nice break angle. We're going to go to that. So the entrance angle is going to be direct, completely straight. But the exit angle will be slightly tilted, because we want the strings to point towards the posts. That looks to be a sufficient depth. You don't want the depth of the nut to be too high, because it looks weird. And you don't want it to be too low, because the string will pop out. You want it to be just right. And I feel like that is just right. Looks like Goldie was hungry. So that's dinner for Goldie. I guess it's the winter time, right? So, poor thing. I don't know what she eats. If she doesn't eat the stuff I give her. Maybe she eats rats or garbage. I have no idea. You'd be very surprised if you ever played a guitar that did not have a good break angle. Or a banjo, especially on a banjo. It's very important to have a good break angle. It isn't just about the function. We also want it to look nice. Yeah, look at it. I like it. All right, that's the work we produced this evening. A bone nut for a 0 fret guitar. See what it looks like. See, it does sit low, right? But that's kind of the point. The 0 fret will be here, and those strings will dip right over, boing, right into their spots, right to where they're supposed to go. I like it. Okie dokie. Well done, everybody. Let's give this nut the polish it deserves. Okay, that, my friends, is a bone nut for an acoustic guitar, an acoustic nylon stringed classical guitar made out of bleached cattle bone. And no, it does not smell like a delicious steak dinner. It smells like garbage. I think it looks fantastic. Now we're going to begin the fretting process, and for this I'm going to use a sandbag. I can't remember where I got this idea. I think it was from Dan Erlewine. But we used to use sandbags all the time in theatrical productions. They come in handy for holding stuff down, things that are top-heavy scenery, that kind of thing. They're also used a lot in film and television production. They're mandatory on professional jobs. You have to weight down your C-stands or else they will fall on somebody and nobody will ever hire you again. For lutherie, they come in pretty good handy because the bottom is soft. It gives it a soft surface to pound against, and yeah, you can bang on things. I found that the key to a good fret job is in the preparation. The more work you do in the initial parts, and the better the ultimate outcome. Whoa. I am not making the slots deeper. I'm simply clearing out the gunk. All right, for the next part, since this is a mahogany fingerboard, and mahogany comes in many variations, from incredibly dense mahogany to like a light, fluffy mahogany with open grain, we have to be conscious of what kind of mahogany we're working with. And because this is more of a very a light, airy, open-grained mahogany. But with such an open-grained soft wood, I don't want the weather changes and just the shifts that wood tends to do in general to cause the frets to come come loose, pop up over the years. To prevent that from happening, I'm going to use a little bit I'm going to pound them in with a hammer, and I'm also going to use CA glue. I also might use the fret press. First, though, since I'm using CA glue, I'm going to put wax on the fretboard. The wax will make it easier to remove the CA glue. This is simply to protect the fingerboard, the wood, from the CA glue. With that done, I think I'd like to try the 0 fret first. See, there was a little splatter on that one. This one just doesn't want to live life to its fullest. But now we get to use the fret press. This thing will only work for certain parts of the neck. It's better for electric guitars, better for necks that are not already attached to the instrument, mostly. Acoustic guitars, where the neck is attached to the instrument, I feel like the hammer is the best way. It just works every time. Well, in some cases it doesn't work apparently, but I guess today is a day of using absurdly overpowered tools to accomplish simple goals. That is the last fret on this instrument for which that fret press will work. After that, the heel of the guitar gets in the way. Now let's pop the ends off these babies. Next up, we've got this thing. It files the fret ends. I originally made one of these things. It's right here. I made it out of a cutting board, but StewMac was selling them on sale. I thought, well, StewMac makes really good tools, so what's the difference between what they made and what I made? Turns out, in this one instance, this tool isn't any different than the one I made myself. They are exactly the same. You can make this tool yourself. But usually StewMac makes awesome tools. Now let's look at them individually. Hey, they all look pretty good. We're not done yet. Still got a little more work to do. File the sharp fret ends using a fret end file. fret ends filed. Tape off the fretboard and level the frets. This guitar is now taped. Okay, all right, let's do it again. Okay, all right, man, let's do it. Okay, bumping down the street. All right, so the way we make sure that the frets are all level with one another is by sanding them down. And to tell when we've sanded them down properly, we'll mark them with paint. And as the paint is worn off, we'll know which frets have been leveled and which frets have not been leveled sufficiently. And for the actual sanding part, I will use a straight beam with 240 grit sandpaper on one side, 600 grit sandpaper on the other side. All right, now I'm going to hit it with the 600 grit side briefly. Does anybody really care? All right, let's rock these frets. No visible rockage. The client came over last night and told me that his grandfather picked this up in Okinawa in 1970 or 1971, which confirms one of the things I was thinking, which is that it came from the Pacific Ocean region. I think it was a very well-crafted instrument. They did a good job. Just this pinstripe alone, this pinstripe was well done. It was done by hand. Somebody did it with their hand and a paintbrush. Whoa, all the way around. All right, on to the next part. Which is crowning the frets. Step 1 of fretting. We take the fret and we pound it into the fretboard, and it looks something like this. A beautiful fret from the side view, right? Okay, the next step in this process is making the frets look nice. I got flits on my finger. Okay, the next step for this guitar is to make a pick guard. Here's the old pick guard, and I think it would be cool to make a pick guard out of this piece of rosewood, which came to us from the Martin factory. This would have been used on as a headstock veneer, but now it's going to be used as a pick guard. There we go. So this new pickguard retains some of the original look while being brand new. Right now I'm going through with a card scraper and I'm creating a bevel along the edge. All right, so here we are back with the guitar, and we are at the part where we put the strings on the instrument. Yeah, so let's string this instrument up. So the tools that I'm going to use for this, for stringing the instrument, will be the strings themselves, a Peterson Strobo Plus HD C, these clippers to clip the string ends, and little tweezers. The next string will be I'm going to do the high string, the E string. You'll see that one side of the string is a little bit different, but there's a little marking on this indicating that this is the side you want to tie. This is where the tweezers really come in handy. And it's a very, very simple knot. That way cowboys could tie them on the prairie, on the plateau, right? It is cross it over, and then you go under, grab the bitter end, and that is the initial knot. Now, you just go under one more time, and that's what creates the knot. Oops, it came loose, and I had to do it again. But now, we're going to do it again, just because we can, and for security. It's a security thing. And, okay, there we go. And that's it. Yay! All right, so I'm going to turn the tuning machine until the point where the holes are straight up and down. And then I'm going to take this end of the string, put it through, bring it up, and pull it through. This is a standard knot, my friends. But the thing that will make it a little different is that what makes it a luthier's knot is that as we turn it and we get tension, we're going to pull it this way, which will add tension against the knot, which would be the same knot that we use on banjo strings, because banjo strings are slippery, as are nylon strings. And you want to make sure as it winds on to the peg that it winds towards the tuning machine. So it's going in from here out to here. Same with this, from here out to here, from here out to here, here out to here, here out to here, here out to here. And we pull this pressure until it's tight, and then it tightens in on itself. So pulling, and not pulling hard, but just pulling and turning. There we go, that should be sufficient. And they're going to be loose at first, so what I do is I lift them up. I don't lift them up with much force, but I just do this, and that brings them back down. So you can hear it go from this pitch that's pretty good. Now I'll take this tool and clip it off, leaving just a little bit so that as it works itself and becomes less tense, then it will not come loose. And now we repeat that process 4 more times with the other pegs. The reason sailors are good at knots is because after your duties are done on board a ship, there's really nothing else to do but tie knots. It's Goldie! Hey, Goldie! Goldie wants her Goldie goodies. Goldie wants her Goldie goodies. Goldie wants her Goldie goodies because she is a cat. I gotta go feed Goldie. Hey, Goldie. Okay, Goldie is happy. Goldie is happy. All right, now to tune it. And of course, as I tune it, I'm going to get a sense for what this instrument sounds like. Okay, everybody, that is the end of this journey. Thank you for joining me along the way. I had a lot of fun fixing this guitar. What I saw was an instrument that would be a lot of fun to make work. This guitar was built, I think, in 1961, and it had been taken care of, but glue joints fail over age. Also, at some point, steel strings had been placed on it, and those steel strings caused tension on the neck and the bridge and the soundboard, which would not have been there otherwise. Also, there were bolts, actual bolts with nuts holding the bridge in place, which created a leverage point. It also created stress on that soundboard and the bridge. But I knew when I saw it that it would be fun to repair, and the sound that came out of it in the end would be completely worth it. So thank you for joining me on this journey. I want to continue making these videos. So if you'd like to click the like button or tap the like button, that would mean a great deal to me. And if you'd like to subscribe to see more content like this. I think that about wraps things up. Thank you very much for joining me. It does mean a great deal to me, and I hope to see you soon. Bye for now.